Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to the week, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. I am Jer Stays, sharing what to know and where to go on this March 18th, 2024. And helping me do that with stories of news and sports, Fletcher Sharpe. How are you, sir?
I'm okay. It's Monday.
Maybe I sound a little too annoyingly chipper for a Monday.
I mean, Monday just means the weekend's over. So you got to say, aw, darn, and, start the week.
Yeah, fair. Let's start with some local news, a story I want to bring out kind of up front in this episode. There is now more details for what's happening for an airport shuttle between downtown Detroit and Metro Airport. It's going to be called DAX, the Detroit Air Express. Originally, it was going to be, I think, $15, but tickets are going to be $8 now. There will be 16 daily trips to and from Metro Airport. And the shuttle will run every day, starting from basically right near the transit center, the book tower, that kind of stuff in Detroit at 3:30 a.m. And it'll take 30 minutes to get to the terminal. We're taking a step forward just in time for the draft, having some sort of regular bus connection. This is part of a pilot program that's going to go on for a while, see how it works, see how the ridership is, all of that. But I know people were excited about it, Fletcher. And here's what's crazy. On social media, I have seen a bunch of people post like, hey, this should come to my town, or we should do this from Troy, or we should do this from whatever. I'm like, these are the benefits of what regional transit could give you. And maybe more than just the pilot. I mean, literally, this pilot's only costing, I think it's like only a couple $1 million or something.
While I hate the fact that it takes for something like really important to happen before we get transit like this, I am glad that this is the start of it, because if you travel outside of Michigan, you see how while many states are set up just as great, they're a little bit closer. To get from A to B in Michigan, you have to drive. And sometimes people don't really have the access to driving. So public transit like this, it allows people who cannot drive themselves to get from A to B, especially when there's big events in town, like the draft coming up. This is great.
Well, yeah. And people who cannot drive themselves include visitors to this town.
Yeah. If you go to Chicago and you're like, I have to go here, it's like, all right, cool. You could walk here, take a bus or whatever here. But you come to Detroit, and I've had friends visit. I'm like, where are you staying? And they're like, Madison Heights. And I was like, ooh, okay. It's like, yeah, how far is the walk? I'm like, you can't walk. If you walk, you'll be there tomorrow. I guess they're like, when's public transit? I'm like, oh man, you should really have Uber or Lyft on your phone by now. So to have something like this that goes from Romulus to Detroit, there's a lot of space in between those.
This is a direct connection pilot for now. I could see in the future, there's that Dearborn Transit Station that they built over there on Michigan Avenue that's, to me, woefully underutilized. And I know a lot of people really, really want rail. But one thing this has shown me, and I kind of believe this before, is that we have to kind of show people these things. A lot of people who are really into rail, like they've been to cities with those things. When it comes to most of Metro Detroit, like I still cannot forget that a close friend of mine, just this year, had their first trip on a Q line and maybe their second trip on a streetcar in their entire life. And they're like 40 years old, right? So this is stuff that to some of us, it's like, of course we should do it. And then to a lot of us, it's hard for people to get behind something they can't see.
Yeah. Again, public transit, it's one of those things where it's like, what it is when you say it out loud. But when people are like, explain this to me, it gets a little murky in terms of exactly what you want and why you need to get from A to B. Something like this, kind of fleshing it out, you can then say, so we have this. What about something like this? And you can build on it and you can expound. And I'm not going to say they're going to have fleets of public transit from every city, downtown and such, but like having a few more is always a good thing to have in your back pocket, especially if you're trying to expand in the tourist business.
For sure. I think we need to do a team trip on the D2A2, the bus from downtown Detroit to downtown Ann Arbor, just to give it a spin. It's something I've wanted to do, but I just haven't been able to organize it together, but it would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, of course. Get to Ann Arbor and get to stop by Zingerman's real quick, and then the trip's all worth it.
I see, Fletcher. You got your priorities straight. Let's get into the sports. A couple of local teams made the NCAA tournament. We're talking about, of course, Michigan State. The Spartans are in there for their 26th year. Some will debate whether that's a good or a bad thing, but they are in. And to the joy of many listeners who have messaged me about this, the Oakland Grizzlies are back in the NCAA tournament. They're both playing on Thursday. Oakland is going to be playing number 3 seed Kentucky. Let's talk about the big school first, and then we'll talk about the school that I know a lot of people are very pumped about.
Michigan State's season was not good. I mean, yes, they made the tournament, but at this point, and I hate to sound like one of these people, it's kind of like the Red Wings playoff streak where they were like, we made the playoffs. And it's like, yeah, season was like, all right. You kind of got in there. There were points during the season where it's like, oof, this team should not make the tournament. This team should be a number 1 seed in the NIT. And then there were points where you're like, all right, like, yeah, they're going to make a run. I don't see them winning their first matchup. And even if they do, they have to play the number 1 seed in their region. So that's going to be rough. But I mean, 26 in a row is the longest streak currently in the NCAA, and all of them by Tom Izzo. That's a monumental thing. You can't take that away at all. I'm a little bit surprised, teeny bit. It's a little bit funny. It's about all the MSUs. Michigan State will be playing Mississippi State. So MSU is going to win regardless. I expect a tough match. I think it kind of will break Izzo's streak of getting his graduating classes to the Final Four. He's gotten almost every one, or each one, at least once to one Final Four, which is an amazing thing. But yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen with this team. There's too many deficiencies, shooting and such. So I don't know.
All right. Oakland Grizzlies, they're in. I mean, for a school like Oakland, coming out of where they come out of the Horizon, coming to the dance is a big deal. It's kind of cool to see. That's one of the things I like about the NCAA tournament. And it's one of the things that I worry about with future changes. Part of the magic to me is the Oakland University Grizzlies of the world making it into the tournament, right? Like that's part of the joy to me.
Yeah, I still have memories of when they made it a long time ago. They had that losing record. They got in. Raul Marshall was the star, and then they got into the first round and just got absolutely crushed. But it was like, no one cares at all because you see all these people who played locally, who are playing together for a university, who are now like, not that they weren't on the big screen before, but it was more of like the local big screen. But now like they're on the national big screen. Everyone gets to know these people's names. And of course, college basketball's evolved to where, you know, even the smaller mid-majors or smaller conferences still get a bit more shine on national TV. But this team is not that team. That team was good enough to like play in their conference, but not so much outside. While they are playing against Kentucky in their first game, which is a very, very tall task, as Kentucky generally brings in 5-star recruits who don't play very long in college, but can get out. This team is equipped to play. It's going to be a little tough, but I mean, again, local talent. You have Trey Townsend from Oxford, undersized power forward who's having an amazing year. He is the conference player of the year. Blake Lampman from Deep can fill it up a little bit. I know is not the most high volume scorer, but you have someone. And for Michigan State fans who all were very happy for this, former guard Rocket Watts, who incidentally enough played at Mississippi State as well, is one of the players for Oakland who's there. And I honestly am happy for him because I know he's had a very long career that was supposed to be one for the stars. He was supposed to be this 5-star recruit going pro, doing such. He got to Michigan State, played well, got hurt, tried to play through it. His shooting dipped. He went to Mississippi State, decided to come back home to Oakland University, and had a bit of an up and down year. Some injuries kind of have held him back a bit. But to see him be the leader, the veteran on the team, one of the few players who's been to the tournament to help lead a team there is great. And of course, Greg Camp runs a great program. Whether they make the tournament or not, like they are typically a respectable program. He's a coach who cares, and you could tell he cares. So for him to finally get a team there for the first time in quite some time is a great local story, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize he's been there for like 40 years.
He and Izzo have had a relationship for some time. I know at least 20 years because I've always seen them play each other, and they always have such high regard for each other, and they talk and laugh before and after games. I knew it went on before that. I just didn't know how long before that. He's been there for a while. I think if he only leaves if they're like, hey, do you want to come back? And he's like, I don't know. But because you can tell how much he really cares about the organization, cares about the university, cares about the kids who come through there. I think he's there for, until he decides that, I think I'm good.
Yeah. So if you're going to put your bets on who would be the Cinderella team, I mean, I'm going with OU. I'm feeling a lot stronger about OU as far as chances than Michigan State, just because Michigan State's been so erratic. I know that Izzo really tries to get his team together for the tourney and anything can happen, but I'm more on the OU side of feeling like they could possibly do better.
I mean, for sure, I don't see either of them advancing, and that's nothing against them. And this is nothing against Trey Townsend because he's an amazing player. 6'7" power forward against a team full of trees in Kentucky. It's going to be hard. I know he's overcome a lot to play as well as he's been playing this season, but like Kentucky's got some real tall people. They've got some speed that I don't think they've seen in their conference before. So it's going to be a little bit rough for them. Whereas with Michigan State, it's just going to be an ugly game. It's going to be two teams who are pretty good defensively, just like knocking the snot out of each other. It's going to be closer to like probably a football game than a basketball game. So it's going to really come down to see who's tougher in that game. Kind of in both games. If Oakland can rely on Trey, if Rocket can kind of pick up where he was earlier in the season, I think Oakland has a chance to bust some brackets, especially those in the state of Kentucky. But I think if I'm leaning towards someone advancing, I probably see Michigan State advancing a bit more just because it's a bit more of an even matchup.
All right. Both the games are going to be on Thursday. It's going to be a fun Thursday night for some people, especially local sports fans. Detroit City FC brought back 3 points from Colorado Springs over the weekend. It was great to see. I love to see the play of Elmas Amo and Fletcher Sharpe. I'm not sure if it's legal in youth leagues, but somebody on Threads, Dave Hogg, was like, you know what that is? That Connor Rutz goal, that last goal, was an exercise bicycle kick because he was sitting on the ground getting that thing in. But 2-1, a win over Colorado Springs. I think an okay start, a good start to the season. You always want to start with a win.
In youth leagues, it is not legal. In most rec leagues, it's also not legal. If you are on the ground, you cannot play the ball, especially if there's someone around you for safety reasons. That goal was dumb. Like, it's great that it happened, but like the entire thing surrounding it was just like dumb. The cross came in from Reese. It was supposed to get cleared out. Falls to Connor, who hits it, gets saved. The ball falls. Connor falls. The keeper falls. The defender steps out of the way, and Connor hits a little cycle on the ground and taps it in. And this is what I said on social media, and I'll say it here. The entire play was dumb, but when you play with a purpose and play going forward instead of playing aimlessly, like they did at times last year, things tend to break for you. And there's been no player in the history of Detroit City who things have broken good towards more than Connor Rutz. So you kind of expect him to score a goal where you're like, hey, what's that?
Is he the human rabbit's foot of LaRouge?
I wouldn't go that far, but like potentially. He's had a lot of plays where it's like, I don't really know how that worked out in a positive play, whether it's a tackle, whether it's a pass, whether it's a goal, where you're like, I can see how it happened, but like I can't explain to you the dynamics of what happened. But I do know that they're taking the ball out of the net and they're celebrating. That game was great. They won 2-1, which is nice. But I mean, even from that, it was the dynamic moves on offense, which really shows that like this team is a bit different. Ali Koot on the wing, different gravy. He had people moving left and right. He was instrumental in the first goal. He had the ball on the left, cut back in, gave it to Maxey, who crossed it to an open Elvis Amo, who was just moving perfectly in space. Elvis scored the goal, but again, his movement up top was what was really impressive to me. There were times where he wasn't getting the ball, but he was still moving into spaces to allow people to receive passes or to make himself available for a pass, or even if he wasn't making himself available, just to move and to draw someone away to give you more space to operate. Stuff like that is like what they were missing in a forward for some time. No offense to Ben Morris or anyone else who's played up top, but a lot of the times it felt like those people were up there like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. I'm going to make a run. And it wasn't about opening it up for the team. It was about getting something for them. Whereas Elvis Amo's runs probably are a bit more selfish. I'm not going to say that they're not, because I'm a forward and I understand a forward's mind to that degree. But like the runs he was making were allowing the final third to open up for Detroit. And just to see that is great. To see the offense actually look a bit more competent than they have in years past is great. And to get 3 points and bring it back is also good too. They have Loudoun United coming up, who, as of right now, this moment, are at top of the league. They have a forward in Zach Ryan, who was there last year, who is a consistent goal scorer. They have to look out for him. But they held someone who I think is better in Ronaldo Damas in check. You barely heard his name at all, which I was stunned, especially with Matt Lewis retiring, for Devin Amu-Mensah and Stephen Carroll to form that center back partnership in the middle. Michael Bryant adding some pressure off the edge. Brett Levis also applying some great pressure on the wings. They looked really good. Everyone watching them, people who were like not Detroit City fans, even the ones who don't necessarily like the club were like impressed with how the team looked a bit different than from the end of the season last year.
Yeah, it was just crisper, 100%. You could just see it with your eye. Like, it felt like a better club out there.
Like, they still had their moments where you were a little bit concerned. They got beat on the break a few times. The goal they gave up was off a set piece, off an unneeded foul, and literally every pass off that set piece, the players were literally one step behind. You saw the first pass come in, someone's behind. Next pass, someone's behind. Next pass, someone's behind. The pass that led to the goal, someone's right behind, and the guy who struck the ball had two defenders directly behind him who just did not know where the ball was at all. And Nate was just left out with unable to do something. He made an amazing save in that game, but he can't make every amazing save, even if people expect him and want him to. But save for those moments, they looked great. One thing I will say is a little bit concerning late. They got killed on the wings. I know Colorado Springs is a team that utilizes space and speed better than a lot, so that's probably going to be an aberration a little bit, but you want to keep an eye on that because getting killed on the wings late is how you give up going from winning games to tying games and from tying games to losing games. So hopefully it's just the first game jitter they're working through as opposed to like the way the season's going to go, because that's going to be stressful. They're going to be a high-scoring team, but they're not going to stop many people. You want to see them score goals, and you want to, have some excitement, but you don't want them to be the team that scores goals and leaks goals. You'd rather them not score and then give up no goals, because at least then you're probably more prone to win than you are if you're leaking goals on both ends.
We will be at Keyworth for Loudoun. It's coming up on Saturday afternoon. Couple of thoughts. I mean, we're going to do a full preview in the newsletter on Friday, but couple of thoughts going into the match, Fletcher, what we need to be thinking about? I know it's early.
I mean, honestly, just keeping Zach Ryan in check. That's really it. I know it's hard. Making sure you keep your wing presence, making sure you don't get beat deep. There are a few times Michael Bryant and Brett, especially on the wings, would press up to help in the offense, and then the ball would get passed between them and the center back, and there's just a big old gap where neither of those players are gifted with enough speed to get back all the time. So we want to try to avoid that. But yeah, keep Zach Ryan in check. Keep El Medkar, their midfielder, in check. And you should have 3 more points at the end of that game.
All right. Fletcher Sharpe, so good to talk with you, and a great way to kick off the week.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
For sure. As always, feedback, dailydetroit@gmail.com or 313-789-3211. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. If you'd like to support what we're doing, patreon.com/dailydetroit. All local stuff requires all local support to keep going. With that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharpe.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.